Boy, and you know what's funny? Throughout all of history, there's always been a remnant like this of people with the righteous cause. We're outnumbered, we're outfunded, we're outmatched. The Revolutionary Fathers in the US wrote to each other leading up to the Revolutionary War, and they essentially said to each other as young 20-something men, we can't win, can we? And they said to each other, no, but it's the right thing to do, so let's go die for the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And we have, I mean, you saw the crowd out there. We don't have a very worthy adversary, so let's not back down to that kind of stuff. As a former college wrestler and jiu-jitsu practitioner, it's going to take a whole lot more than 120-pound skinny jean wearing Antifa to stop me, so. I actually got on the phone with my jiu-jitsu crew. They were ready to come down here if it got hot, so you guys are in good hands. Before we go on, I'm going to introduce Dr. Kindy. There's one man that has never been mentioned that I believe deserves to be mentioned tonight, and I know he knows I'm talking about him right now. I came to this church in the middle of the pandemic because it was the only beacon in the world in which the faith that we have in Christ, those of us who are Christians, manifested in the political war, which is a manifestation of the spiritual war, was Pastor Dan Anderson. Can you please stand up, Dan? He hates this stuff, which is why he's so deserving of it. Our first speaker tonight is Dr. Anna Kindy. Now, she's not only brains, she's also athletic. Little known fact is she was in the 1992 Winter Olympics freestyle skiing team. That's pretty cool. She was born in Quebec. What's it with freedom fighters coming from Quebec? I'm from Sorel, Maxime's from Saint-Georges-de-Beauce. We have the most socialist government in the country, yet we have Gaulois blood going through our veins, so we just can't be told to do, we only go so far. So she competed in the 92 Winter Olympics. She's also an MD who's in the last 20 years has specialized in addictions medicine. She's innovated interdisciplinary network approach to it, using all levels of the community skill sets, and inside and outside the medical field. And tonight, she's got a very special project she'd like to talk to us about. Please give a warm round of welcome to Dr. Anna Kindy.
That was quite the introduction. Thanks. First of all, I want to thank we Unify, and apparently it's 1 year anniversary, I think. Is that right, Jonathan? Yeah, so congratulations on that. So I'm here to bring a bit of the medical perspective. I'm going to talk about something for 5 minutes, and then I'll talk about the project. So the one thing I want to talk about is where are medical colleges in Canada moving? Are they moving in the right direction 2 years into this pandemic? So recently, our college sent us a memo on informed consent. That's a positive. But ironically, this college is still censoring and punishing doctors to this day. A good friend of mine was supposed to have his meeting with the college this week, and his lawyer managed to postpone it. And what he's done is he actually wrote an open letter to Bonnie Henry because of what he was seeing post-vaccine. And he's still being prosecuted to this day. And what you want to remember as well is, most of these complaints to the college are not patient-driven. So this is not a patient-driven complaint. This is the college trying to censor physicians and bully physicians. In California, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but the governor just signed into law the ability of the college to suspend physicians for spreading misinformation and disinformation. And who decides what is misinformation and disinformation? Politicians. So politics has officially entered the realms of medicine. Public health, the college and government are now working together. Now I want to read you a recent memo from the College of Physicians of Ontario. Quote, "It is important that physicians work with their patients to manage anxieties related to the vaccine and not enable avoidance behavior. In case of serious concern, use of prescription medications and/or referral to psychotherapy are available options. Overall, physicians have a responsibility to allow their patients to be properly informed about vaccines and not have those anxieties empowered by exemptions. End of quote. So to paraphrase, let me give you an example. A 22-year-old male comes into the office concerned about myocarditis because of the COVID vaccine. His brother, who's 31, is a cop, and because he wanted to keep his job, got the second Pfizer shot and ended up with myocarditis. So according to the college, what I should be telling this young man is the vaccine's safe and effective. Are you worried? Here, let me give you a prescription for some Ativan. So Ativan equals maybe a couple of vodka shots. Oh, you're still nervous. Here, I have a counselor in the other room. Do you want to talk to the counselor? So this is more or less what is interpreted by what the college has said. Now, what is a proper informed consent? Oh, I'm so sorry about your brother. Myocarditis is a serious illness. Myocarditis is death of heart cells. There's no such thing as mild myocarditis. Up to 20% of people die within 6 years. 1 in 5,000, there's the risk of myocarditis in your age group with the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine is 1 in 5,000. There's been a recent, what's called prospective study. What prospective study means is that you examine the patient before the medical procedure and you examine the patient after the medical procedure. So it's one of the highest studies you can do, one of the best studies you can do. So one was done recently in Korea. They had 110 male patients under 25. They got immunized with a COVID mRNA vaccine. 1 in 29 of these young men had increased heart rate and blood pressure. 1 in 29 had cardiovascular effects. So these increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, that's acceptable, but 1 in 29. 3 of the 110 patients, male patients, ended up with myocarditis. 3 out of 110. 1 was hospitalized. So this is a prospective study, meaning that you examine the patient before the procedure and you follow up the patient after the procedure. And by studies, 3 had myocarditis out of 110. In Denmark, we no longer vaccinate anybody under 50, male or female. Florida, this is recent, is no longer recommending immunizations for males under 39. So you're worried about your grandmother. Well, don't worry about your grandmother, because most likely you have natural immunity. And also the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting COVID or spreading COVID. Okay, so that is a proper informed consent. Since medicine should be based on evolving science, not politics, what can we do? And every one of you is important here. And it's get involved in groups like We Unify. Groups have more power. Individuals are important, but individuals as groups have more power. Running in elections. I mean, I'm totally impressed by the candidates today. Every single one of you, spoke very, very well, and congratulations on running. Now, my other pitch is what's happening in this province in terms of the medical mandates. We are the only province, including Nova Scotia, that still has medical mandates, meaning that the doctors that are unvaccinated cannot return to work in hospitals. Nurses cannot return in hospitals, right? 40-plus doctors formed a nonprofit called CSSEM, which stands for Canadian Society for Science and Ethics in Medicine. We petitioned the government based on science. They responded to our petition mid-September with a 2,600-page document. Mostly fillers, yeah. We so far self-funded most of the legal aspect of it, but going forward, we need probably another 300,000. So we're trying to fundraise, and this is why I'm here today. So if you look at the site, and I've left a pamphlet in the back for people to pick up, it's cssem.org. And like I say, if we win this, if medical mandates fall, all mandates fall. And that's why it's so important to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. Are you guys enjoying this tonight or what? It's funny how you could just feel the life and the energy of these meetings like this, can you? You don't see that. I've been running for politics. You go to the other side's events, and it's just low energy. Moving on. This next gentleman needs no introduction, but I've been tasked with introducing him nonetheless. His real pronunciation of his name is Maxime Bernier, right? So get that right. He's flown a long way to not have his name garbled up. He was born in Saint-Georges-de-Beauce in Quebec. And after his initial career in finance, he represented his hometown in the Beauce as an MP from 06 to 019. That's correct, right? And during his tenure, he also served on Stephen Harper's cabinet. Now, in August of 2018, he resigned from the Conservative Party to establish the burgeoning People's Party of Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Maxime Bernier.
Merci. Merci. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Oh my God, that's great to be here with like-minded people, freedom fighters. Maybe I must start by answering the question why we started the People's Party in 2018. Yes, I was a member of the Conservative Party of Canada, a member of cabinet with Stephen Harper. I did run for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada in 2017. I didn't win with 49% of the vote. And after that leadership, I had a discussion with Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer was the leader of the Conservative Party at that time. After 18 months, I asked Andrew, you know what I said during the leadership? I was speaking about individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect and fairness. That was very popular with the members of the Conservative Party of Canada. So I said to Andrew, in 2018, a year before the 2019 election, can you take some of our ideas? They were very popular for the next election, for the platform of the Conservative Party of Canada for the next election. And I must admit, Andrew was very honest. He said, no, Maxime, I won't take any of your ideas. I said, why? He said, you're right. Your ideas were popular with the membership of the Conservative Party of Canada. But we are going to a general election, and your ideas are not popular with the general population. So we won't take any of your ideas for our next electoral platform. So that's why I resigned, and I said this party, the Conservative Party of Canada, is intellectually and morally corrupt. They have the name conservative, but they don't fight for real conservative values. So So we had all these ideas, and we created the People's Party based on the platform that I had in the 2017 leadership contest. And when we started the party, I said, if you like our ideas, please come, be part of our party, be a member, support us. But if you don't like our ideas, don't come to our party to try to change us. We won't. We will fight for that until we win the battle of ideas. Our goal is to offer another alternative to Canadians. Another alternative based on strong principles, individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And that's very different the way that we are doing politics. And I said we are doing politics differently. That's not a slogan. That's the reality. Because it's not because an idea is not popular that that idea is not just and true. And an idea does not become just and true because it's popular. We need to speak about what we believe openly, with passion and conviction. And if it's not popular for us, that's not important. We will speak about it because we know that we have the right vision for this country, speaking about Western civilization values, the right vision for this country, and we know that if more we speak about our ideas, the more support we will have. So when we started the party in 2019, we had 0%. Our first election in 2019, 1.6%, and the last election, 5%. And yes, the next election, that will be the same platform, the same ideas. We won't change. That's why we are doing politics differently, because all these other national political parties, establishment political parties, before an election, they're going to do survey, focus group, and polling to have a new electoral platform. They want to tell you what is popular today, to have your vote. That's why Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative, the Liberals, the NDP, the Green, were not with us in March 2020 because it was not popular to speak for freedom. We were there with you. The first rally that I did in Montreal, 400 people. And the last rally that I did in Montreal, 45,000 people on the street. So what I'm telling you, if you want to judge an establishment politician, he will tell you what is popular today. That's why Pierre Poilievre didn't speak. We're nowhere to be seen in March 2020. It was not popular because of the propaganda coming from the federal government and provincial governments and the censorship on social media. Fear propaganda was very efficient, and we had the majority of Canadians that were saying more lockdowns, more curfew, more stay-at-home orders. That was a situation. People wanted to have security. More security because the fear of that virus. So if you're an establishment politician, your only goal is to be reelected, and you will look at the majority and tell and do what the majority want. That's why Poilievre and all these establishments were not there. But we were there with you. And I remember the first rally that I did in Montreal, and all the activists, and that's great, they were, oh, we don't want you, Maxime. You're a politician. We don't want politicians at our rallies. We are activists. We don't believe in politicians. And I had to prove myself, to tell them I'm not like the others politicians. I'm there based on principle. And that's why I'm doing politics, because I have faith in you. I have faith that you have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make your own decisions and determine your own destiny. That's why I'm here. I believe in people and not in big, fat government that will tell you what to do with your life. So we did rallies, Brian, everybody, all across the country, in small towns, in big cities. And after that, we had the Freedom Convoy, and you saw the video before. All of you, Brian was speaking. We had the mainstream media against us, the majority of the population against us in the beginning. But because we fought openly, with passion and conviction, we were able to win. And that's why we don't have mandates at the federal level right now, because we were able to change the public opinion. That's why Poilievre is able to say, I'm for freedom, no more mandates. He's able to say that because of you, because of your work. So what we need to do, it's a common sense revolution, a freedom revolution. We started that revolution in March 2020. And I can tell you, Trudeau or the NDP or any provincial government won't be able to impose any mandates because they're looking at the polls and now we have the majority on our side. Just for example, in March 2020, I had a nice dog, a poodle, Cooper. And when I'm in Montreal, I have to do my duty. I have to bring the dog to the dog park, and Cooper likes it. He likes to run. And in March, April 2020, I was in the dog park, and a lady, she had a big Doberman, and Cooper was playing with the Doberman, and I was with my wife, Catherine, at the dog park. And after that, the week after, I was traveling. I was not in Montreal. So Catherine went back to the dog park, and she saw that lady with the Doberman. And the lady spoke to Catherine, and she said, Catherine, I recognize Maxime Bernier. That's your husband? She said, yes. She said, poor Catherine, that must be tough to be married with a crazy guy like that. So I came back from a trip to Alberta, have a nice dinner with my wife, and she told me that, and we laughed like you. So, but the good news, what is the good news about all that? I was in that dog park a month ago, alone with Cooper, and I saw that lady, and with the Doberman, and she came, and she started the conversation with me. Oh, I'm crazy, you know. But she started the conversation. And she said, Maxime, you know that I'm double vaxxed? I say, no, I don't know, and I don't want to know. She said, but I won't take the third shot. I won't take the fifth one. You know, enough is enough for me. I'm not crazy anymore. She's more intelligent now. That's the reality. And the same week, the Quebec government did a poll. When you think about establishment politicians, think about poll and focus group. They don't know, they don't have any conviction. They just want to tell you what is popular today. But what is popular today, maybe next day won't be popular, like we did with the mandates. So the Quebec government did a survey and a poll, it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they asked vaccinated Quebecers if they're ready for their third shots. 69% of them said no thanks. 69% of them. I believe that it must be the same here in BC and in every province. We were able to change the public opinion. We were able to move the public opinion. Because in the beginning of the pandemic, 69%, 75% of the population were asking for more lockdowns. They were scared, they wanted security. It's not because of me, It's because of you and extraordinary Canadians like you who did the fight. You had the courage of your conviction. It was tough. It was tough to be out there rallying, campaigning, and people were looking at you like crazy and what are you doing outside? How come you don't have any mask outside? You did it. We did it together. But now we need to finish the fight. Yes, there's still some mandates here in BC, and that's unfair, unconstitutional, unjust. We need to change that. We need to do that fight. And that's why actually we have great candidates tonight that they want to do the same fight, the common sense revolution. You know, what we just saw tonight, what they're teaching our kids, it's criminal. It is. We need to change that. So that revolution must be at every level. Municipal, school board, provincial, federal. And I'm very pleased and I want to thank our candidates here tonight that have the courage of their conviction to fight for what is good for our country. So wokeism is everywhere. But you know, we have the common sense on our side. And these establishment politicians at every level, they're not doing what is good for our society. They're doing what is popular for the society. Regardless of the facts, the science, the reality. And wokeism, it's popular because of the propaganda coming from the media, from the mainstream media, from everywhere. So we have a big fight to do. And that's why what I'm asking you tonight, stand up, speak out, be part of the change, be the change, and I can tell you, that revolution is going on. And I can tell you that, yes, the PPC at the federal level, we will grow next election, we will have some candidates elected, but also in the school board, municipal, provincial, people are listening. They're open. You know, when you are in an economic crisis like today, with that inflation, and maybe we'll have a recession, people are looking for another alternative. And that's a great time for us. We need to be there when people will look and question, how come my standard of living is going down? How come, you know, I think that something is going wrong in that society when we are teaching that to our school. When we are saying to a young girl, you may not be a young girl, you can be a young boy. That's not science, that's crazy, and we need to speak against that. We need to speak about the reality, the scientific reality. That's our job. If we don't do that, nobody will do it for us. That's why we need you. That's why, all together, we will be able to change our society and to regain our country. Thank you. Stay strong and free. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we are circulating some juicy gossip, so just make sure you read it, okay? It's about Randall. And by the way, yes, please, there are scrutineer forms out in the back. We do need to have some sort of volunteer force to be out there, again, just making sure everything happening at the polls is 100% lawful. So we really thank you for those of you. And to my fellow candidates, don't run away afterwards because you have to endorse each one, right? So, well, thank you so much, Maxime. That was worth the price of admission, and it's not over. That's right. We had Wonder Woman. We just saw Batman. Now here comes Superman. Now, Mr. Brian Peckford was only the third ever premier for Newfoundland, his home of Newfoundland. And also, it's youngest ever, I believe, at the age of 36. Is that correct? Which, at my age, even that seems young, which is kind of sad, but that's okay. And he served from 1979 to 1989, and in 79, he was also voted in as leader of the National Progressive Conservative Party. Now, however, the most relevant fact remains that he is the last surviving architect of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. A living legend, a living national treasure. And as those of us in this room know, the precious, sacred nature of that document, which literally is the thread that unravels the Western world if it's allowed to be let go. He has been energized in these past few years to remind the next generation of what is at stake in our times. Please help me welcome the Honorable Brian Peckford.
Thank you very much. Jonathan and Tamara, members of We Unify Canada here in southern Vancouver Island and Vancouver Island generally, who began this movement such a short time ago. And I was, what shall I say, honored to be here and to speak to you, to a wonderful crowd that night. I tell the story all the time, everywhere I go. I tell the story about being on the stage when a lot of you who are here this evening were there then. And what an electric evening it was. It was fantastic, and it launched you, and I guess it launched me as well, to continue to pursue the idea of freedom. You know, I became a part of Mr. Bernier's party now, a year and a half or so ago. And every time I hear him, I know the reason why. He touched on something really, really important a few minutes ago that needs to be stressed again, and that is, yes, obviously, we all change and we all progress, both in age and in maturity. No question. We all know that. That, too, is a scientific fact. But there are certain fundamental principles. There are certain fundamental ideas which are at the root of who we are as human beings. That does not change. That's what Mr. Bernier was talking about. That's what conviction is to have a core of values, a core of principles. Socrates, 590 BC, standing before about as many people as in this room tonight, huge, big citizens' jury. Imagine, 590 BC, and they had a citizens' jury. But they had been persuaded by the oligarchs and the people who controlled the society at the time, something like now, that he was no longer to be able to teach and to be the purveyor of principles and ideas to the young people, because he was a danger to the state. He was a danger to the state. And so we're talking about principles and ideas that began even before 590 BC. And here we are today in 2100 AD. That's the ideas we're talking about. Freedom does not change. Individual freedom and rights does not change. They are forever, everlasting. And when we sign the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in 1981 to become the Constitution Act of 1982, That's what we were doing. We were transcribing in writing, so we could refer to it later, not just by custom or tradition up to then, but in writing, like the Americans had in 1791, we got in 1982. That's what we were doing. We were enshrining principles, everlasting values that were supposed to guide this society into the future. And these were supposed to be, as the judge in Louisiana said a couple of weeks ago that I put on my blog, this judge listened to all sides and made the statement, no, individual rights comes above all. Above all. There's no compromise. There's no compromise on principles. There can be compromise on a lot of things. You have to negotiate a lot of things. I negotiate a lot of things in my day, including offshore oil and gas and fisheries and hydro and a lot of things. Matter of fact, even as it relates to getting the Constitution, I relinquished any say over the fishery, which I was arguing for at the time, which was given away at the time of Confederation in 1949 when Newfoundland joined Confederation. I did it for the sake of Canada, not for the sake of Newfoundland, because if it was for the sake of Newfoundland, I wouldn't have relinquished it. I had to forego that for the greater good. But there are certain principles like freedom and rights and freedoms of individuals, which are so core and key to a civilized society. When you do not have it, society will suffer and democracy will only be half of what it should be. Now, like Maxime, this is my 50th year now involved in some way in politics. I was actually even involved a little bit earlier, but, you know, and so I've been through, and I like to relate this to people so that they understand not only in what I write, it's better to feel it and understand it from what I say physically before you, because it's easy to write it, and it sounds good, and the core values are right and excellent. But what people must understand, and I said to Carol this morning, who, by the way, if she wasn't around today, I don't know if I'd be here sitting on this stage, because halfway through she had to take over a lot of the work. I couldn't do it all myself. I mean, I just turned 80 and she just turned 70, so we're 150 now. But I said to her this morning, this was lots of things you feel and you sleep on, and then you wake up and then you have a phrase for it, or you can put it in a conclusion. You can put it in a conclusion. Well, this morning for me it was this. 3 people that I've known, some for a long time, some for a short time, but they all have similar ideas to mine now. One is Jordan Peterson, and he was the one who allowed me to announce my lawsuit. He was the one who I had suggested to the lawyers we get to see whether he would interview me where I could announce, the same with Mr. Bernier, a lawsuit against the federal travel. Another is Rex Murphy, who I went to university with, who's a former Newfoundlander. And another is a latecomer, David Solway. If you follow my blog, you might have seen some of his writings. He has difficulty getting carried, as I do now, and so you won't see it in the mainstream press. But he's been writing even before Rex and I have been writing about it in this way, as it relates to the Charter rights and freedoms of the individual. A great Canadian. He lives in Vancouver right now, him and his wife, and a wonderful writer. But over the last, and here's the rub. Here's the real rub. All three of those individuals are so important to this movement of freedom and retaining and reforming and making sure we're still a democratic country. But all three, in their own way, this is why I guess I've always been a bit of a loner, I suppose, in one sense. But here's the difference between me and the three of them. And they're doing yeoman work. Without them, I wouldn't be as effective, Maxime wouldn't be as effective, and so on. And they're intellectual stalwarts, backbone. But I've come to the conclusion, like Maxime did, that the system has to be changed. You can't play around at the edges. And there's the rub. And I can say that, Maxime can say it, because he's been involved in federal politics and understands the system. I started in Springdale, Newfoundland in 1981, campaigning for a small businessman who didn't have a chance to win. That was my first time as a campaign manager. I was teaching school at the time. And I took on the job to manage the campaign for him. It was the closest any Conservative had ever come in that riding in its history. I was in October 71. In March 72, I ran and won. First time a Conservative ever won that district in its history. And so I want you to know that that was a great achievement. But I want you to remember more. That's when I started in the system. And I was a part of the system right up through, even though I was a rebel on many of the ideas, but I was still part of the system. That's why when I woke up this morning and Carol says, well, Rex just had a new article in, and I say, great, what did he say? And I'm going to read it, or I've just read it, or whatever. Or David does, or Jordan does. But where I don't part ways with them, but where I extend it differently than them, that they think you can just play around with changing a few faces in an NDP party, or a Conservative party, or a Liberal party, or a Green party, and it all will be solved. No. As I showed you. You don't need me to persuade you on that now anymore when you saw that school stuff up there. You don't need me to tell you when the Chief Judge of our nation, our Chief Justice, condemns people for their civil disobedience without one shred of evidence. He's the Chief Judge. He's not supposed to decide or make an opinion on anything without the evidence, because every lawyer tells me that. Every judge tells me that since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And our Prime Minister condemns our citizens. So we have the Chief Judge and we have the leader of our nation telling us that we are wrong to stand up for our rights and freedoms. And you ask me whether we can change it by fiddling around with the old mainstream parties. I was a part of all of them for a long, long time. And in order for me to be true to myself and true to the principles and ideas that I learned in high school and university and so on, and tried to practice to some degree as a minister and as a MLA and as a First Minister, and then being part of that charter, you just got to stand up. And you've got to say, even with those who are with you, that in order for Canada to sustain its democracy, we must change the system. And we can start at doing that at the school board level, at the council level, at the provincial level. But you must be true to yourself, and you must be true to those principles of honesty, integrity. You must be true to those principles of freedom and individual rights and parliamentary democracy. Imagine parliamentary democracy. I even hear people still saying we got parliamentary democracy when they closed the federal government and the NDP closed down the parliamentary committees so Judy Wilson-Raybould couldn't appear before it. Closed it down, as if we were in Russia or China or North Korea. So our system is broken. As the first step towards healing, isn't it? It's the first step to change is to acknowledge that you were wrong, or that you are sick, or that you need to do this. You must look in the mirror and say, my system, our system, this system is broken. And that's hard for someone like me to say after being part of it and a practitioner of it for 50 years. And so this morning, what I said to Carol, when she told me that, I said, and she can get aggravated with me and I can get aggravated with her because, you know, they're on our side. So why am I saying this about Rex? We went to university together. We were on student council together at Memorial. Right? And Jordan Peterson did me the greatest favor of all because no mainstream media would listen to me to make that announcement about that federal, and over 1.5 million people have listened to it. But I have to say that we've got to take it one step further. And I said to Carol, the difference between the three of them, brilliant and fantastic in their own ways, at the top of their game, is that I was elected. And I saw it from the inside. They're still just seeing it from the outside. If knowing how they feel now, without seeing it on the inside, and they were suddenly to see it all like I saw it on the inside, oh my God, where would they be? They'd be 10 times more provocative, right, than I am today. If they witnessed somebody in an office sitting down with me and offering me a lifetime of wealth if I just allow them to do A, B, and C, and you resign in 6 months' time. Paul Alexander tells that story. I don't know if you read one of his Substacks where he talked about where he was offered that. So was I. So was I. So I know it. Not only did I know it from the inside, I know it from the outside, because after I retired from politics, Carol and I started our own company, and we represented companies in their interaction with governments right across the country. We represented clients at every province of Canada and every territory, even the new territory of Nunavut, when it was being formed. I was working then as a consultant. So I saw it from the outside, and I saw it from the inside. And every democracy is no different. It's no different. Every democracy is the same, unless there's significant, ongoing civic engagement at the local level. Then democracy will start to fall away. The greater the civic involvement, the greater the democracy. The less civic engagement, the less the democracy. You've all heard the term, especially in Ottawa, but I'm sure you've heard it now, especially in the last few years, PMO, right? Prime Minister's Office, right? I thought about it this morning when I got up and knowing I was going to be speaking here this evening. And you know what came in my mind for PMO? No. I'm going to twist it around and make it positive. For the candidates here tonight and for citizens and voters here tonight, P stands for passion. M stands for message. O stands for organization. You must have all three candidates, all three of those concepts in order for you to be a successful, quote, politician, unquote. In order for you to be successful in persuading your fellow citizens to elect you, you must really believe in what you're doing. That's the passion. You must really believe it. And you must believe in yourself, too. You must believe in yourself. So passion is extremely important. And you must be passionate not only about yourself and your idea, you must be passionate about the message that you want to deliver to your school board or to your municipal council, to your area that you're going to represent. You must have a message. What am I going to do? What do I want to do? How do I want to change this for the better? And then thirdly, you must have organization. You must have organization. In 1972, in March, I started with nobody. 2 ladies, one 70 and one 72 years old, both passed away now, came forward in Springdale, Newfoundland, to man a little office, like 12 by 14 or something. No phones in it or whatever, had to get phones. I had 9 days to campaign before election. I had only gotten elected as a candidate the night before. Started with 2 people, 2 ladies in that campaign, okay? But I sat down with them, and they had known I was a teacher, and they had been to the meeting the night before. And I outlined who I was and what I wanted to do, and they wanted to help. So that's what we started in 9 days, with passion and with a message. Then we organized. And suddenly, out of the blue, came a lot of my students. Matter of fact, they started the night before. It was the first time in the history of that little riding that at a nomination meeting, there was a exhibition, people who were supporting you. This was my students, unknown to me, had gone to the local drugstore and stationery store and got some signs and stuff. And when I was introduced, they came in through the door of the school auditorium supporting me. So 5 or 10 minutes of my speech went with these young people coming up the hall, and everybody didn't know what was going on, what was happening. It was amazing. And so from that day forward, within about 48 hours, there was a full organization. A number of people who came back to school to finish their high school graduation had gone out to work. I taught night school as well. And I helped a lot of these young people, 18, 19 years old, graduate with a high school diploma and move on to a trade school or to university. One of them is still alive today and posts every now and then about stories about he and I, when I was his teacher and he was the student, and later when he was one of my campaign managers in that campaign. But notwithstanding that, and when the 9 days were up and the wave was coming our way, I get back into the capital of my little riding, Springdale, population then of about 3,500, and go to the headquarters. Place was now lots of people around. They had all know how to organize because I was the campaign manager in the previous campaign, and had got a lot of young people around and got them looking on the walls and looking at all the polls, poll captains, and organizing every minute thing. And a lot of the students already knew that I was one of those people, I wanted it done right the first time. There's no second time. You get it right the first time. I was always there in school before they came in the mornings. I was always there after they left in the afternoon. And I was like that when I was premier. I was in the first in the morning. I was the last to leave. That night, 5 minutes to 8, 5 minutes before the polls closed, and I knew we were gaining but would never won the riding in its history. The only riding in Newfoundland at that time had never been conservative in its history. It had always just been liberal. But I didn't think we were going to win. But I knew we were closing. So every moment counted. Every single vote counted. So I rush into the headquarters, as is my wont. Couldn't walk, I had to run. Barged in and, oh, here's the boss, oh, Brian, Ray. I said, time is it? 4 minutes to 8. Let me see the poll sheet. Oh, skipper, oh, boss, we've got it all done. I said, I want to see the poll sheets for Springdale. So, of course, they rushed them to me, going down through, because they had to tick off. First, you get out those you know are on your side. Make sure 100% of them are out. Then you go after the doubtfuls, and then you leave the others who you know are against you home, right? But you make sure you're organized so that you get out those first two categories. 100%. If they're still alive. Guess what? I saw on one poll sheet 3 minutes to go, a lady who I knew, who was a supporter of mine, and she was ticked as a supporter. She hadn't been out to vote. I lose it. I lose it. And everybody was frightened I was going to lose it. Margaret Warr is not out. She hasn't been out to vote. She is a supporter. But we went to the door. She's 9 months pregnant. Has she delivered? No. Jumped in the car with one of my former students. It was only about a few feet away. Springdale, halfway down the, like about 500 or 600 yards, 700 or 800 yards. Got out of the car, went to the front door, banged on the door, out she came, took her under my arm, brought her out to the car, got her in about 30 seconds to go, and she voted. A true blue Tory. That's how you must be in this cause. When you represent people, right? You have to be passionate. You have to have a message of change and honesty and integrity. And then you must be well organized. And I never, ever forgot that and from whence I came. That day, I'll tell you one more story. That day at around 6, a phone call came in from Nippers Harbor across the bay on the other side of the constituency, still in my riding. I had north, central, and south. It was a big bay in northeastern Newfoundland. The total number of Conservative votes out of that community ever in an election was 2. I went campaigning there, and I was asked to leave the community. I was thrown out of people's houses. I was thrown out of their gardens, whatever. But before I was thrown completely out of the community, this old guy, old to me, he was younger than I am now, but caught me by the tail of my jacket and said, "Mr. Peckford, Brian." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I support you." He said, "I am a Tory from way back. Never for Smallwood. Didn't believe in what they were preaching." And he said, "I've lost my vote every single election since 1949 when we became a part of Canada. Me and my wife. That's the 2 votes that you saw. Come and have a cup of tea." So I went down to his house and I had a cup of tea. And he said, "I've got something in my bones," he said, "tells me you're going to turn it for the first time. You're going to do it for the first time." So he said, would you please get some people to send me down some signs and I'll put them up. The wife and I'll put them up. So I did, and he put the signs up and they all got torn down. 6 o'clock, polling day. Phone call. George Prohl, Nippers Harbor. And of course, the people in the audience, in the office, you know, and in one, everybody trying to get everybody out, blah, blah, blah. I want some signs. For Nippers Harbor, 2 votes. We might get 4 this time. We can't afford to do that. We just can't afford to do that. I found out when I phoned in the 2 hours before I got there. And somebody said, do you know Mr. Prohl down in Nippers Harbor? He said he knows you. Did you met him when you were down there? I said, yes, I do. I said, a gem of a man. Rode for 50 years, I made a living. Fishing. No motorboat. Raised his family. Owed nobody nothing. Nobody owed him anything. He was as independent as they come. And I said, George Prohl from Nippers Harbor just called in? Yes. I said, what did he call in about? He wants some signs. And I said, pluck somebody out of the office, get a car, almost an hour's drive, drive to Nippers Harbor with as many signs as you can give him. Boss, you're crazy. We haven't, you know, we can't go doing that. I said, do it, and do it now. Down go the signs. He's home listening on his radio. And first time and ever in the history of Green Bay District, goes Conservative, the Liberals lose. The Minister of Highways, who comes from Nippers Harbor, has lost his seat. George and his wife went around the harbor putting up the signs. And he called in the next day to say, not one sign was torn down. They all got the message. That's the kind of commitment you have to the cause, right? You've got to have that kind of commitment. I used to phrase it another way to the high school students who would ask me to speak, students that I had taught, or other schools in my riding and around the province, and in some cases across the country, you know, to come and speak to them. You know, you came from just being a high school teacher, you weren't involved in politics, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you're very controversial even now that you're elected, blah, blah, blah. Would you come and speak to us? And so I always did. And the phrases the words I used then weren't the PMO words, but they were very similar. One was, be yourself. Number 2 was, be honest. In all things. Not even the white one. Be honest always. And the 3rd one I used to say was, and be a little bit brazen. Be bold, dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone. Especially, as Maxime says, if you're standing for principle, if you're standing for something that's integral to a democracy that will make it work. And I'll tell you, that's infectious. When people know that, they either want to be with you or against you, and the ones that are with you will always be with you. And the ones that are against you, hopefully you'll persuade some of them someday that while the light holds out to burn, the vilest sinner may return and come to our cause. So please, over the next while, and in the elections coming up, get committed. Take a stand. Defend your stand. And get out there and fight for what now is obviously some of the more crucial days in the history of the democracy of Canada. Well, Canada will survive. Lots of these countries have survived for decades, generations, centuries, but they haven't been places where you would want to live, have they? One of the most cruel experiences, both, what shall I say, pleasant and unpleasant, that Carol and I had in the last while, was she was knocking on a door in Parksville for Mr. Bernier in the last election. And this young lady came out, and suddenly, 5 or 6 kids surrounded her. This was a young couple, had 6 kids, homeschooling. Her husband campaigned a few days later with me as well, knocking on doors. Anyway, she invited Carol in, and we got to know them. As we speak, this moment, they have or are about to arrive in Panama City with their 6 kids. They're gone to live in a little town halfway up the mountains called Vulcan in the state of Panama. Very passionate guy, very passionate lady, absolutely wonderful kids, unbelievable. All of their friends will tell you the same story about them as I'm telling you. One way they said goodbye to their friends with the great weather we've had, that in August, they invited all of their friends to come down to Parksville Beach and say goodbye to them because they were leaving the next morning to drive to Lethbridge to see her parents before they flew from Calgary to Chicago to Miami to Panama. We can't allow this to happen. Intelligent, bright, wonderful, honest people deserting our nation because they see no future for their 6 kids and themselves. If ever there's a story that rings out for personal commitment by Canadians to stop this slide from democracy, that is the story that rings so true, so true. So let's get on our horses and let's go forward, onward and upward, en avant, to change the course of our nation. Thank you very much.
So in a bit, we're going to have, as a matter of fact, if I could have Dr. Kindy, the Honorable Brian Peckford, and Maxime Bernier to come and have a seat at the seating here. We're going to have a microphone stand. I believe we only have one currently. Over on the right. Can somebody bring that up closer to the staircase? Jeremy, can you bring that mic stand closer to? Now, please, with your selling real estate or you're pitching a new product line, your wife's knitting at home, it's not the time to grandstand. Please. I want the opening lines to come out of your mouths to be "my question is," and then launch right into it. I have been given the honor to ask Maxime the first question tonight. Maxime, can you give this mic as well? A 2-part question. What differentiates you from Pierre Poilievre, number 1? And 2, what advice would you have to the burgeoning freedom movements on the grassroots level like we have now, because they're so easily fractured and disunified?
Yes. I'm not here to speak about the PPC and myself. I'm here to support our candidates that are running and want to change things here in your municipality. What I can say, I know Pierre Poilievre pretty well. I can say that Pierre Poilievre is more intelligent than Erin O'Toole, first. Second, he's a very good communicator. That's important in politics. You are selling ideas, and you have to communicate, and he's very good at it, communicating his ideas. And also, I must say that he's not so afraid of the mainstream media. And, that's very good, because now the mainstream media, as you know, they are all leftists and liberals. So he's not afraid to tell them about what he thinks. So that's good. And he's part of the Conservative Party. Like I told you, the establishment of the Conservative Party of Canada is intellectual and morally corrupt. What is the goal of Pierre Poilievre right now? To be Prime Minister. And he will do some compromise to be able to be Prime Minister. There's more seats in the GTA than in all Alberta. He will go to the left like these other leaders. But like Pierre Poilievre, I want Trudeau out. I don't want Justin Trudeau and the Liberals to be in government at the next general election, after the next general election. So we are something in common. We are fighting to be sure that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals won't be in government. And that's all the argument about splitting the vote. If you vote for Maxime, I like his ideas, but I don't want Trudeau, and I will vote for the Conservative because I don't want to split the vote. That's the only argument that they have. They don't have any other arguments. There's no such thing as splitting the vote. You know, they are taking for granted that 100% of our supporters are former Conservatives. And I can tell you, I'm traveling across the country, a third of them, must be coming from the Conservative Party of Canada. Another third from the from the NDP and the Green. And another third, people who never voted. So it's not true that we will split the vote. But I hope that I understand and I can see that Poilievre may be prime minister before me. And that's okay. That's okay, because what I will say at the next general election, you know, if Poilievre is winning in the polls, good for him. But we can be your insurance policy that Poilievre will stay conservative and will stay in the right direction. We can be like the NDP of the right. The NDP is pushing the Liberals to the extreme left. We'll do the same thing with Pierre. We will support him if he's a conservative. If he's not, we won't. So supporting the PPC, it's a win-win, because we will work with the conservative when they will be conservative. So that's what we want to do. And we won't do any compromise. Pierre Poilievre will do the compromise. We won't. We won't. We won't change. We have the same platform. So what I will ask you is to vote for your values, vote for what you believe. If you vote for what you want, you will have more chances to have what you want. And all together, we'll do that. So, and my advice for you candidates, I hope that you'll be like Brian. You'll be able to win the first time. I hope so. But it's tough. It's very difficult. But if you don't win, please stay engaged. I didn't win in 2019. I lost my seat in 2019. In 2021, I didn't win. I'm still here. I'm still here. Time is on our side. I will win. We will grow. We will win. But if you don't win, stay. Be engaged in your community. It's a revolution. You cannot do a revolution in one night. So I hope that you'll stay engaged. And I hope that you will always believe in your dreams. And our dreams, it's the same one. We want you to be there. We want to end that wokeism and all that radical leftist ideology. So we need you. I hope you'll do everything. The organization, it's important, like Brian just said. Yes, try. You have a week. Door knocking, be on the phone, calling people, cold call, do everything. And if you don't win, you'll be able to say, I did my best. I'll be there the next time. We count on you. We are with you. And I can tell you, you will succeed. Thank you.
That is wonderful. Does anybody want to ask a question? The microphone is right there. Come on up, young man.
I want to thank you guys for being here today. I'm definitely a strong supporter in the morals and values you guys offer. I just want to say that, Maxie did mention about, politics. And what I'm trying to say is that maybe in the future, when the next election happens, we can all unify together. We understand that, there's a king here and there's a premier here, vice versa, right? But maybe we can come together as a country, because we got the East Coast right here, we got the West Coast right here, and come together and reunite Canada and bring back what we used to have before, the culture, the niceness, not what's going on today, It's just, we're being sold out. Our land's being sold out. And I appreciate you guys giving me this moment to speak here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just found you on your charts. This is the fourth speaker tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to introduce him. Anybody have a question?
I'm just going to go off script. I'm so sorry. My name is Kara McMinn, and I dipped my tires in the Pacific Ocean in the Nanaimo Harbor on April 25th, and I cycled across Canada. I did this to memorialize those that have died from the vaccine and to throw support under the heels of those that have been injured and are now disabled. My question to you, here it is. When I speak to people across Canada, they said, this happened to me, this happened to my family member, but I can't prove it.
There is a free dinner ticket downstairs for the first question of the evening. Anybody want to try?
Good day. My name is David Lalonde-Gauthier. I want first to say thank you for coming and thank you, sir, for all your contribution you've done to this country. It is historical. We needed you, and we need you today. But one thing that I would like to ask, and here's the question. We have a law that was voted in 1994 called the Padlock Law, and we know that there are many people that woke the communists that are throughout the country. The Padlock Law is supposed to be preserving us from them. Is there anything here that either officials or citizens can do against the people that are in cahoots with communists, whether it is in the federal or the provincial level, like we have here in BC? We have a Communist Party of BC. I was astonished we have that. Is there anything we can do legally against that?
Who's the question to? Mr. Peckford, or?
In particular, yes.
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Yes.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Okay.
Is there anything we can do, because we have a law in Canada, the 1934 Padlock Law, that is supposed to preserve us against the communists? Is there anything that we can do legally against them when they try to represent their values and their party?
Well, one of the things I looked at when I got involved back almost 2 years now ago was I found out that the University of British Columbia had 38 different agreements with universities and colleges in communist China.
Oh.
And so these kinds of things are going on all the time. It's like I'm talking about now the Chinese police stations or something in Toronto, and there might be one in Vancouver. There's no easy answer to that kind of a question in a place like Canada. That's why this meeting here this evening is so important. You're going to have to start at the local level, get your curriculum and get your schools straightened out, then your universities, then your province, and then your federal government, right, as these elections come by. So the long and short answer to your question is you just got to take a stand, decide what you stand for, and then go and push that candidate at the school board level, at the council level, at the provincial level, and at the federal level. And I've never been one to sit on the fence. When I decided I couldn't take the Conservative Party of Canada anymore. I looked around and I read the platform of Mr. Bernier's party and so on, and Carol and I joined it and have been campaigning for it and contributing to it ever since. Because I think it's very important for us to be committed, right? You've got to stand for something. It's what shall I say? It's philosophical and nice to be able to say, I have a right not to vote, as much as I have a right to vote. And insofar as that's sustainable within an intellectual kind of parameter, fine and dandy. But you've got to participate in order for that democracy to still be around, so that there may be some people who don't want to vote. We all don't have that luxury. We got to get out there and campaign to try to make a difference.
Thank you.
Hi, so my question is mostly for Maxime, and again, thank you all for coming out into BC. I think if any province in Canada really needs help in getting a Conservative or PPC message out, we are so desperately in need. And I guess my question is, other provinces are already changing, and places like Alberta, where I'm from originally, it's kind of goes without saying, Conservative vote is easier to get in there. Although when you look what happened to Calgary. My question though is, what more effort can we focus on in BC in particular to really start getting a more right-leaning, more conservative message through to these lifelong, never conservative voters, you know, like the never Trumpers, the never Poilievres. They're going to be these people who will always NDP, my whole life, NDP. I'm never going to change my mind. Even if they're voting for my assassination tomorrow, I'm never going to change my mind. I'm just going to jump off the bridge with everyone when they tell me to do so. What is going to be the efforts going ahead? And I understand the grassroots effort that's here is amazing. I've been a part of the PPC for a very long time. I've been volunteering. You know, I know every individual makes part of the greater whole. But what can we do that in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years, we have a really strong conservative wave that comes in to say, hey, like, drink the Kool-Aid?
Yeah, so there's no miracle. There's no secret reset that we can do. We need to work. The challenge that we have right now is with the mainstream media. They are canceling us because I believe that they know that our message is powerful. So we need, and there's a good news on the other side. On social media, I was personally, and the PPC, shadow ban on Twitter and Facebook. But the last week, because we know that maybe a transaction will happen with Twitter, with Musk, he must buy Twitter. And since that announcement, we grow our supporters from Twitter by 5,000 in one day. So something is happening. Our message must be out there. But the challenge that we have, we don't appeal to your emotions like the establishment political parties. You need to read our platform. We are appealing to your intelligence. You need to take 15 minutes to read the platform. So that's why the best way to grow, and we have 3 years, maybe 4, the best way is to be out there, meeting people, door knocking, and being active. That's the solution. And it's working. From zero, 4 years ago, it took 35 years. 35 years for the Green Party to have more than 1.6% of the vote. 35. No, sorry, not 35. It took 10 years for the Green Party to have more than 1.6% of the vote. We did that in our first election. And after 35 years, at the last election, the Green had 2%. So we must grow, we can grow, but we'll do that together. We need to be out there and to speak to people. That's why I'm traveling across the country. We are not in election campaign, and I'm traveling, building the organization and meeting our people, and encouraging you to be active at the municipal, provincial, school board. We're going to win that battle. I cannot tell you when, but I'm sure that we're going to win that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Just to your question, I'm not a politician. I'm standing on the outside, and I think part of the problem today is that we're labeling people, you're either on the right or on the left. And I think those labels, to be honest, need to go. So you're either on the side of truth, morality, whatever you want to say. But I think if you approach anybody who's voted NDP and you say you need to vote for the right, they never will. But if you approach it saying you need to vote for ethics, you need to vote for freedom, you need to vote for truth, for change. And I think that's what we all need to do. Stop the labeling, right or left.
I would like to thank all three of you for giving me hope from the bottom of my heart. I am fighting the battle of my life right now. I've been dragged to the Supreme Court. I did not vaccinate my daughter, and her father, of course, wants to vaccinate her. And you mentioned, Mr. Peckford, that family that moved to Panama. Well, I myself am looking at countries with no extradition to Canada, and I'm asking you today, what can I do to make a judge reconsider vaccinating my child?
We're both in court right now, and it hasn't been going well for us. Our case was supposed to be heard on September 21st, and the federal government moved in with a motion to try to cancel our case altogether before it's heard. And we're waiting for that decision now, and we still haven't heard. And up to a few days ago, the federal government put in another argument against us, which is not usually done because the case has been heard and the judge is supposed to render a decision. Well, in between that time, the federal government has inserted themselves again with another letter to the judge, which is usually never done. So we're sort of in a different way in the same boat as you are, and I get emails and phone calls every day from people who are before the courts, and what can you do to change the course of the law. That's one of the really sad parts of where we are today and why a system change is needed, right? Because most of the mainstream parties, you will not be changing anything to make life better in this justice system for someone like you in the future, okay? This is one of the problems. That's why on the steps of the legislature here, I announced my own Magna Carta, and the first thing is that, and I've written Mr. Poilievre, and he won't answer me, asking, will you bring in tomorrow into the House, this is how you can start with honesty, right? Will you bring in the House of Commons tomorrow an amendment to the Conflict of Interest Act, which says no MP can serve in the Parliament of Canada if they've broken the law? And he won't do it. They won't release all of their expenses and how they're spending their money like Mr. Bernier does. You can go in on the PPC site and say, we got to go back to basic honesty in order to get a change all the way through to the judiciary. The judiciary right now are not carrying out their responsibilities, for example, in interpreting the Constitution and our Charter. They're ignoring the supremacy of God and the rule of law, the first two principles that start the Charter off. I was able to help a lady just when we were up in Powell River in August, Carol and I, when I spoke up there at a Freedom Rally, through Jeremy Manick here and his group here in Victoria. And I've been able to help people who are losing their jobs, but within the court system, you're stymied, and you'll only get like contempt of court and make matters worse. This is why sometimes I have to say to people, I don't know if you know that if I try to help you here, it might hurt you more than help you. Because as soon as my name gets out there, you know, the horns go up. I,
In Ontario? Yeah. Yeah, I think this was quite a while ago, and I think the situation has changed. I think it was probably 6 months to a year ago where a sympathetic judge took the mother's side who did not want to vaccinate her child. So at that point, it was judge dependent, and the judge used science to base his decision. And I think the way to, I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer. This is what our court case is based not on the Constitution, unfortunately not on the Charter. It should, you would think you would win those cases, but it's based on science. And I think if you arm yourself with as much data as you can, there's the CSSEM. We communicate continually with data around the world. And so we get the latest news, the latest data, the latest studies, the latest peer-reviewed data. And if you, collect all that, and pass it on to your lawyer so that, how can you fight logic and science? And if your judge is sympathetic, fantastic. But, that's how I would approach it.
but that's what's happening today. The judge in Manitoba said, I'm not going to even look at it. We had thousands of pages of independent scientific data, which the judges ignored.
But the other point with this case that I'm talking about is that the judge took into consideration what the child wanted. And in this case, it was two kids. It was a boy and a girl. There were three kids altogether. One kid was living with her father, and they got vaccinated. I just really wanted to address this lady here who is in a terrible situation. But the case involved 3 children. The oldest boy was living with his father. He wanted to get vaccinated, and the mother agreed he get vaccinated because it was what he wanted. But the 2 children living with her did not want to get vaccinated. And she knew her science inside out. Now, she got a sympathetic judge as well, I suspect, but he took into consideration the children's feelings. They were interviewed privately, and the kids were afraid to get the vaccine. And he felt that it might, by forcing them to get the vaccine, it might impact them mentally for a long time. And also, he felt that the mother had far more evidence to support her position than the father, who was really trying to bring the mother down, saying she was hanging out in the freedom movement and doing these terrible things, but not focusing in on the actual science, in which event he sided with her. He also pointed out, which was really interesting, he said the government needs to be held accountable. We can't forget, and he referred to the Japanese and other people who were interned during the war, what they did to the native people by taking away their children. So he was a great judge. He saw the whole picture. But I don't know how your children feel. Maybe how they feel. It's a daughter?
Yeah, she's 5.
She's 5 years old. She's so young. So these kids were older than that. So that might be different. Anyway, sorry, I just...
Thank you so much. Now, just for the sake of time, we're going to take one final question. If you're standing in line, the speakers will stay up here for a few minutes to engage with them. And then once my teammate Sandy dismisses you guys after the last question, remember 2 things. The next 2 Tuesdays, this coming Tuesday, is the trustee debate. We're going to have the whole slew here, not just our team. We need people to ask them the questions that will make them answer and reveal their actual stance. You guys know exactly what kind of things to ask. If you're in the front half of the row of the room, you'll use these doors when Sandy dismisses you to go down. I'm just doing this for the sake of bad food. I don't want to, we spent a lot of money on the food. You guys are very hungry. Bad chicken ruins your night. And the back half of the audience will go out the back doors down the stairs. So with that, we'll take one final question, and I'll pass that off to Sandy. Thank you.
Mr. Peckford, thank you for all you're doing. My question is to both Maxine and you. And Mr. Peckford, obviously at your age, you shouldn't be fighting this battle, and I know you're still with it, and I want to take you and Carol out for breakfast. And I know you can't be bought off. I'm not trying to buy you off, but Mr. Bernier, you're tall, slender, good-looking, well-dressed. I want to know, one of the doctors that was here at a Unify function said this is the clot shot. I would like to know if you got the clot shot and if you would recommend to all the individuals here to vaccinate a 6-month to a 5-year-old child and see what a definite answer is. And if you think this is a toxic shot, how come you haven't come out in society and mention this more regularly?
Yeah, thanks for asking. For me personally, when it was popular as a politician to be out there and yes, I'll have the vaccine, you know, remember that? We saw our leaders being there and telling you, oh, it's good to have the shot. I said, no, I won't have that. And at that time, the mainstream media was very interested in my answer because I was selfish. I was not a good Canadian. I was a danger for my mom and my grandmom. So I said, I had a good discussion with the mainstream media at that time. I said, I don't take the vaccine because I'm looking at the data. And at my age, I don't have any comorbidity. And, you know, my chances of dying from COVID are 0.05%. So that's why I won't take the vaccine. I don't need it. And if I have COVID-19, I believe that I won't die. And actually, I had COVID-19 in September 2021. And for me, that was a big cold. I was in bed for 1 day, and that was it. So, and at that time, in March 2020 and 2021, I said that we must not force any person to have that vaccine. It must be your personal choice, but informed consent. We didn't have that. We didn't have that in Canada. People didn't know. So yes, young people below 50 years old, they don't need that vaccine. They don't need to take that shot. And I'm very pleased that other countries understand that right now, and they are not promoting the vaccine to younger people. And they are doing that right now in my own province in Quebec. They are starting another campaign of propaganda campaign or ad campaign to force the vaccine to the kids. Try to convince the mother and father that would be good for their kids to have the vaccine. They must not do that. And I spoke against that, and I always will, like Brian, like the doctors. And we had very great doctors in Canada that did that fight with us during that time, and we must continue that fight.
Sir, yes or no answer? Think the vaccine is toxic, as Pierre would say. Yes or no answer?
No, it's not good for me. No, I won't take it.
Not good for you or not good for Canadians?
It's not good for me, it's not good for Canadians. We don't need that vaccine.
So yes, you think it's toxic?
I don't know what is inside that vaccine. What I said publicly, and what I'm telling you right now about the vaccine, I encourage my dad, he's 89 years old, and he has comorbidities, to take the first shot at that age, because he wanted to be out there, he wanted to participate in the society. When the second shot came, I said to my dad, don't take it, because now we have more data about it. So the vaccine is no good for younger people, but I'm not a doctor. So what I'm telling you, if you are under 50 years old, don't take that vaccine. And I'm not a scientist, and I'm looking at other scientific and doctors that are saying, don't touch that vaccine. So don't, you know, I'm looking at study and data, and your answer, the vaccine is toxic for younger people. Yes.
Well,
Okay, I'm gonna have to chop it up right here. Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm gonna add one last minute. There's going to be one last minute entry. Just a gentleman came up to me right now and says he drove all the way from Alberta to come here and speak. And
Hello, Brian Peckford, Maxime Bernier. Watching the video earlier up on that screen there about Parliament. I'm one of your original truckers that went to Ottawa okay, to stand up for each person in here. You guys asked that question on how you fix things exactly like that picture showed you guys. You stand. I've asked Maxine Bernier in Red Deer a couple of months ago on a question, but you never answered that question, and you still got the same speech. It's the same question that everybody asked. Klaus Schwab became a household name because of Ottawa, okay? But yet, no one ever pokes them that they don't want them here, but you guys never talk about them. It's like you're afraid. No, I asked you that question in Red Deer and you never answered the question. No, you guys have the same speech over and over, but everybody's afraid to touch Klaus Schwab.
No, okay, I want you to go on YouTube to look at a video in 2019, I was debating against these leaders. I was on the stage and I said, I'm the only one that is not a globalist. I believe in our country. We must put our country first. So Schwab's, the World Economic Forum and the UN, we are not doing anything with them. We are fighting for Canadians. So what you are saying, because on social media, people are saying Bernier, when he said that he's not a globalist, that's not true, because he was in Davos with clubs in 2008. What is his name? Schwab. Yeah. So the answer, and people are saying because I was in Davos, I was part of that club. So put yourself in 2008. In 2008, I was Foreign Affairs Minister. In 2008, we were in war in Afghanistan. In 2008, our Canadian forces didn't have the equipment for that war, and they still don't. So in 2008, my Prime Minister, Harper, asked me to find resources, equipment for our Canadian forces in Kandahar. And he said, you must go and meet other foreign affairs ministers to ask them to help us in Kandahar. So what I did, because I don't like to travel too much around the world, so I saw that everybody, all my counterparts, other foreign affairs ministers, were there in Davos at that conference, World Economic Forum, all at the same time. So I went there. I had 32 meetings in 2 days with the foreign affairs minister of France, Germany, and all these countries, and I asked them, please help us in Afghanistan. We need equipment, we need planes, we need all the things. We didn't have any equipment, as you know. It's a shame. And I was there just to have this meeting, and after 2 days, I left. I didn't assist at that conference. I'm not part of them. I did my job, and I was very proud to be in Afghanistan to fight for our Canadian forces, for our country, and to be sure that our Canadian forces will have the right equipment for that war. So that was my task. That's what I did. That's why I was in Davos, because it was very efficient for me to have all these meetings in 2 days, and I think it was also economic for Canadian taxpayers.
I never asked if you were...
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you. You can speak with Mr. Bernier afterwards in person. That's okay.
Just going to cut me off?
No, we have to. We have a timeline, we have a dinner, we have everything ready to go. So, guys, thank you for coming tonight. Sandy's going to kick us out, see us out, and then if you want to come and speak to the speakers for a few minutes afterwards, feel free to do so. If you want to go get dinner, it's getting cold.